Catchy. Quick. Welcome to Generation Movie on a Monday nights. My name is J.W. Colwell, and I am joined with my good buddy, my co-host, Rich Drees, for an evening with the Impossible Mission Force. As we're careening towards the end of this franchise, tonight we'll be doing Mission Impossible 3, which I think, for the most part, right, is it's the takeoff point. It's the point where the franchise
becomes something in itself.
Yeah, it's the takeoff point. It's the point by which we find out that Tom Cruise has been binge watching ALIAS. You know, like, weird stuff like that. Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening, Joe Ridgely. Thank you. Good evening,
Ridgely.
Good evening, Ken McKernan. Thanks for joining us in the Great White North. Hope you get some heat. Hope you're feeling better as well. I know you're.
Oh,
well, no, he hasn't been sick, but it's just he's getting used to things. After you have a heart event, you have to get it takes about a year to get like to the point where you're like, I'm not worried about it. It's kind of what it is. But I think the interesting thing we have to start with this week. Well, first off, there's news today that's just crazy.
What are you going to hit me with? Is this? Can I make a guess? And if I'm wrong, we can circle back to it then.
Yeah, sure.
Is this the Voltron news?
No.
Okay.
We'll circle back to Voltron. Yeah.
Okay.
The news out of Hollywood is that Conan O'Brien has joined Toy Story 5.
Oh, I missed that today.
Yeah. He's been
That's awesome.
So, yeah, I could see him as a villain. I could see him as but he's playing a role called Smarty Pants. Whatever that is. Is that a toy? I've never heard of that. But he originally approached when the first movie was being made and said, I want to be Woody. And they were like, sorry, that's Tom Hanks is going to be Woody. And he's like, well, what about Buzz? And he's like, yeah, Buzz is going to be Tim Allen. And he's, so he's playing this character named Smarty Pants. The direct quote was, I've always wanted to be in Toy Story. It's one of my favorite franchises. I really want to be Buzz or Woody at any point in my life, but they showed me this new character, Smarty Pants. It's the best character of them all. I far prefer this character. I don't even want to play Woody or Buzz anymore, even if they beg me. I'm Smarty Pants. I love this. Which leads me to believe, villain? Is he the new bear? Is he the new bad guy villain of Toy Story? I think that would be great. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was thinking about it today. He could play a good guy, but I think him playing a smarmy villain would be fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I think back to the monorail episode of anyway. So that's one of the news. What's your Voltron news? Let's do that next.
As we know, they've been making a Voltron film with Henry Cavill in the lead. Turns out, though, and this was coming from Amazon, and it was destined for movie theaters.
Amazon's batshit with the amount of money they spend. They are batshit insane.
True. But if you just caught the tense of the verb I used, past tense, it was heading towards theatrical screens. Now it's going to go straight to their Prime Video streaming service. And they'd committed to theatrical exhibition on this. I almost dare say that's probably why Henry Cavill signed on for this to begin with.
It's so stupid.
Yeah, it's kind of Roadhouse all over again. Doug Liman's Roadhouse.
But that's so dumb. Like that. I just feel like that's a dumb like, don't get me wrong, everybody's gonna watch it, everybody's gonna love it, or if it's good or not, right? But
I
Voltron,
guess I don't care, honestly. I don't care about Voltron in the least. I'll
well,
probably
like,
only see it because,
I don't
you
know,
know,
it's got
I
giant
have
robots and cool shit in it. I played with Voltron toys when I was a kid, but I would say, like, if you're telling me it's only going to be on a small screen, I can't imagine you spending that amount of money that it's going to take to you get Cavill, who's what, 20 million at least, like,
Oh,
even
yeah, his
after,
quote's probably ridiculous.
yeah, 10 to 15 at least.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
what is the
he
fucking
probably
point?
has points on the back end that you're going to have to pay off by moving it to streaming.
But it's also like you're taking an IP from the 80s, and it's not like they haven't been successful. Like, this is dumb. Like, it's just it's cutting off your nose to spite your face. It's the Netflix idea all over again. Although, you know, and the other thing about it is, and I know this is going to sound silly, but Red One did okay for a movie that everybody knew was going to be on Amazon in 2 weeks. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you put a thing where you go, hey, this movie we're showing in theaters is going to be available on this date exactly, right? Do you think maybe you might have depressed the box office a little bit?
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, this is dumb.
This is the same conversation we've always had about, you know, the shrinking theatrical to home video window and what an idiotic move it is. It hurts theaters. It hurts the studios, and
hurts
they didn't realize
hurts everybody. Like it
wounds, self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah, it's just dumb, and you're paying. What's the budget of the movie? Like, if the budget of the movie is over $150 million, which it has to be, like even small Pacific Rim and Pacific Rim Uprising, like, it's just dumb. It's stupid. Let's see. Hold on. Ken writes, kind of never get used to a heart event, but getting used to the diabetes thing, that's bad too. I wish you the best, Ken. Do we really need another Toy Story after Sporky? I don't know that we need another Toy Story after 3. But
no one wants to know how I would have ended 3.
That's terrible. Don't even talk about that.
It's a dark ending.
But it ends the Toy Story franchise.
But I think it still works thematically.
I don't know that we needed a 4, but you know, these are characters that everybody like. Here's the thing, Joe. Do we need it? No. But have they been consistently great movies? It's like one of the Pixar franchises that they will not allow to be shitty. They wouldn't even allow them. They wouldn't even allow them to go to like direct to video, which is what they used to do with all the sequels. Remember,
what
like
2 was going to be.
Right.
2 was going to be direct to video.
And then they're like, "Fuck that! Let's just make a script and go." Right.
Let's make some actual money.
Right, and then it grossed like what, $300 million? You know, like
something crazy.
Just something nuts. But I
thought the last Toy Story was a little weak, honestly. I mean, it's still far above most other kids' animated stuff.
That's what I mean. Like, they're at least consistently good. If you see Toy Story above the title, you're guaranteed. Right, that one wasn't great, but it was 4 stars.
Where most of the others are 5 or 4.5.
Well, 3 is 6. If you're like, 3 was so good, like, and it ended so emotionally poignant with the little girl taking the box of toys. It was, you know, it was beautiful. Anyway, but I don't know if we need it, but I would say,
but to get back to Voltron here for a second, because we careened off thanks to Joe.
Yeah, Joe.
Everybody. I feel bad for Henry Cavill. The guy can't catch. He can't catch a franchise.
A break.
Man from U.N.C.L.E. No.
That's
we know
too
why
bad though, because that
never appeared in another.
But
Mission
Man from
U.N.C.L.E.
U.N.C.L.E. Man from U.N.C.L.E. was good. Like, I liked the Man from U.N.C.L.E. movie. It was a good movie. Like,
no one cared.
That was a
about
fluke.
Man from
Yeah, nobody cared about the Man from U.N.C.L.E. That's the. Yeah. It's very reminiscent of the Fall Guy for me. Yeah. Same concept. We're doing a show from the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah. We're not going to rehash what went wrong with Superman. He's kind of a supporting character in the Enola Holmes series on Netflix.
But he could do, like, if they just said to him, we want to do a Sherlock Holmes movie with you, he should say yes. Yeah. He should definitely say. He's been fun as Holmes. He can't buy a break, and now he's dropped to 4th on the Bond voting, betting sites. So he's dropping. Well, I agree. A couple things. Hold on.
I think everybody's thinking Reacher-ish size for Bond, and Bond, I think, really has to be a life character.
He's got to be something that can blend in without overshooting. I will say, I'm going to say to you point blank, if Reacher gets to play Batman, I am all in on that. If Alan Richardson gets to play Batman, I am all in on him crushing people's heads in Gotham. Drew Gadaris. Hi, Joe. Drew Gadaris here to say hello to David for me. I assume it's David Howard Thornton, but we'll pass it along. He's a friend of the network. But good to have you, Drew. Thank you for joining us. We need some Hanna-Barbera movies. Yes. Is Highlander getting a theatrical release? Yes.
As it stands now.
Yes. And
I hope Highlander is good for him. I hope they write it so you can do a franchise and not have a second film that is utter shit.
How dare you speak of The Quickening that way? How dare you? I mean, they're bad movies, but all of them.
I've read a couple of the remake drafts that have been since abandoned, and they do all kind of at least have that idea of like, we're going to build the world and leave that door open for sequels.
Well, and there appears to be goodwill. There's at least goodwill about the Highlander franchise that's getting rebooted. There's at least people are out there at least chit-chatting about it going, Power Rangers, Voltron, same thing to me. Sort of.
I'll admit I have not watched a lot of like animated giant robot stuff from the 80s. I do have an urge to dip my toe into like Macross to check that out. I've heard good things. A lot of my Japanese science fiction animation stuff is from like about a half a generation earlier with Space Battleship Yamato, Speed Racer, and then the live action Tosaku stuff from the 70s like Ultraman.
This is where I forget that you are indeed older than I am. But what I would say to you, I did Space 1999. I did Space 1999.
British though, that's British. And speaking of British, if you're not watching if you're a Doctor Who fan, you haven't caught up to like this past week's episode, watch it quickly and hold on to your pants. There's 2 reveals, one about midway through and one right at the end, that I literally jumped out of my seat as a 45-year-long watcher of the show. I think I first saw Doctor Who back in 1981, and I am not going to spoil those, but I will say catch up with those because there is chat about them in the social sphere.
It's all over. It's all over.
You don't want that.
He's referring to Madison. Hi, David Madison, if you're watching. Drew says hi. I will say the 2 80s things that are dying, the 2 that I want more than anything would be, I want a Thundercats movie. I've wanted a Thundercats movie forever. And the other one I would say that would be from the 90s that I think they could really do a good job with is Gargoyles. The Disney Gargoyle show.
I've heard there's a good foundation there for.
There's some really great stuff there, like the gargoyles fighting on behalf of the human race, and then the human race betraying them and trapping them on blocks, and then they get transported to New York. They become superheroes. it's phenomenal, but it also like that particular show, and it's not a spoiler or anything, but I'll let it happen. The person that finds the gargoyles in New York and helps them throughout the entire first season, the reveal is as big as a reveal as you're ever going to get on a kid's show. He actually is a descendant of the person that trapped them. And it's surreal television for a child in the 90s. You're just like, what? Voltron versus Goldorak. Maybe. Let's talk about something else we've talked about recently where everybody was like going crazy. Let's talk box office. I was gonna get to that, but let's talk box office first.
We'll do box office first,
and then we'll do Andor because Andor is like 4 mini movies. So the idea that theaters are dying every once in a while takes a hit. And this is one of those weeks, and I think next week is going to be an even bigger. Holy shit, we like going to the movies. So Final Destination Bloodlines grossed $51 million. It's the highest opening for any movie in the franchise, Rich. And it's the highest rated.
I mean, that gets an asterisk, though, to be honest. I mean, I'm not poo-pooing it as an accomplishment, but when your last movie was 11 years ago, and ticket prices have gone up by
but Rich, it beats the inflation-adjusted 41.3 earned by the Final Destination in 2009.
Okay, then. Okay, if it's still beating,
it still beats it by the still beats it by the inflation adjusted, which is nice. And like I said, I talked about it a little bit. I did an episode of our show, and I know you're not as big a horror fan as I am, but I did an episode of the show on Friday, and I had Kyle on to talk about it, and it's a fun movie, Rich. It's not rocket science. Not giving any spoilers away. Right, it's Rube Goldberg murder devices, a little bit of torture porn, but anytime a movie kills a character and the audience, it's an evil character, it's a bad character, it's a pain in the ass character. Anytime an entire audience at an opening day of a movie, when somebody gets viciously murdered, just starts clapping audibly, I look up and I go, They really nailed that, literally and figuratively. They do a cool concept. The opening sequence is pretty spectacular. It's on a Space Needle type building in the 60s, so they do a little bit of like retro. And then everybody that survives because of the event, everybody that survives becomes part of the bloodline of the entire movie, which may or may not deal with the entire franchise. Although there are pictures in the book there's a book that one of the grandmas has. And these 4 kids do a pretty good job, these people. But the other thing that drew applause was it's Tony Todd's last movie, Rich. And, we missed, there was an outpouring of what the fuck on Oscar night, because that guy should have definitely got at least a picture on Oscar night. He's made enough movies and caused enough box office sensation to be able to get into that particular thing. So it's one of the big omissions this year. But this is an interesting thing. This movie gives him an amazing Rich send-off. He is basically an intricate part of the plot. They find him. He says, now that your grandma's died, I have cancer too. We're the last 2 survivors, and I'm just going to go live my life now that you found me and you know where I'm at. I'm just going to go live my life because I've been walking on eggshells for 50 years, and it's just beautiful. And apparently it's coming out now that he wrote it himself. So it's like I have stage 4 cancer. I've lived a good life. I've had great family and great friends, and it's an emotional moment, and when people clap when he appears, there's in memory of Tony Todd at the end, people clap there. very rarely at horror films do you get any clapping whatsoever, Rich.
True.
And what I would tell you is there are 3 clapping events in a Final Destination movie, and I was moderately happy with it. So I came out of it going, pretty good Rabuqua. I don't know that we need another one, but with 51 million opening weekend, it's going to be hard not to have another one. But, and then, we should talk also box office wise. The idea that we are in week, 7? Is it 7? It's 5. Sinners is in week 5. It only went down 31% this weekend, grossed another 15 million. It's at 240 domestic. And all I can think of, it's a 240 domestic, 76 worldwide. So 316 total. All I can think of is all the dumb fucking articles the first weekend when this movie came out where, it's going to have to gross so much money. It cost $90 million to make. I'm so sick of
140, 180, 240.
Yeah,
it's made its money. It's making, it's 50 million in the black at this point.
Yeah, it's a stupendous movie, and I think we're going to see more of it as we progress. Second place went to Thunderbolts. First place, Final Destination. Thunderbolts, we're starting to hear gripes about, even though it was good, nobody, it's not grossing Avengers grosses. And it's like...
I think people are going to catch up with it when it does hit Disney and kind of hit themselves in the head going, damn, we should have been to that one. And that might start to energize people about, and in combination with Fantastic Four, probably being a better film than even Thunderbolts was. Thunderbolts was a good film, as we both, discussed. But
I think that's been happening recently, though. Like, I think the one that's been on rotation in our house recently has been the Marvels. Like, the Marvels is, widely rejected as a horrible movie, and it did terrible at the box office, and 3 women leads, and I can't stand it. Woke Disney. And then you rewatch it, and it's like, it's fun. It is mindless comic book entertainment for an hour and 50 minutes, and all the people are perfectly cast, especially Iman Vellani as Kamala, right? Like, she can be in anything, and I will watch it for her because she is so good as Kamala Khan. I'm good. But the boys, for some reason, the boys got hit on it, and then we've also had an X-Men revival in the house as well. Mm-hmm. So it's like, because Deadpool and Wolverine came out, and they see a lot of stuff on YouTube about Deadpool and Wolverine, and I said, to get around the R rating, the pesky R rating of Deadpool and Wolverine, I said, well, you can't watch Deadpool and Wolverine until you've seen all the X-Men movies. And that launched into a whole, we'll have to watch the X-Men movies then. As not what I was thinking was going to happen. But we're midway through the second movie, depending on how the mood takes us on any given day between a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. So, and then, the idea that the Marvels has X-Men in it made them giddy. Like, made the little one giddy. That's Beast. I know that guy. That's Beast. He's a scientist. I'm like, yes, he is a scientist, and that is Beast. And you haven't actually seen this Beast, but it's okay because we're going to get there. And, I just think, the Thunderbolts talk chatter now that it's not great or anything. Like, it's stupid. It's as stupid as the Sinners. Like, it needs to grow so much. It's not a hit yet. Well, now it is, so we can shut up about that. What else you got? You got something else? Come on. Before we get going.
Well, Andor wound up finishing.
That's what.
Yes, its ratings haven't been great,
ready.
But it's honestly some of the best damn Star Wars ever.
What I would say is, I think the interesting thing about Andor, for me, is that if you're not a Star Wars fan, it's still a good show. But if you are a Star Wars fan, it gives you the vibes of the High Holy Trilogy, right? It gives you the vibes of a rebellion of people on the outs that are kind of like, forgetting to pay their bounty to Jabba the Hutt, forgetting to pay the money he owes Jabba the Hutt, and a little bit of... it gives you that vibe, and then all of a sudden it creates like characters that we've only seen briefly. Like, has there been a greater reinvention of a single Star Wars character than Mon Mothma?
Mm-mm.
I would beg that question to any Star Wars fan ever. Has there been a reinvention of a Star Wars character where you went, I saw her for 3 minutes once. She was amazing for those 3 minutes. And I had an action figure and everything. She was a cool figure, and she had like a plastic gown and everything. It was cool. But now she's like fully fleshed out. This second season of Andor, she delivers the codifying speech that the Emperor sucks. You know what I mean? Like the speech where everybody is like, yeah, you know what? That guy does suck. And nobody wants to say it because they're going to get murdered. But she made, and then it's just a really great show that transcends all of Star Wars, but also gives you hope that the franchise is
it's just as political as the original trilogy. Especially if you lived through when the original trilogy came out, when a nation was actually just still wincing from Vietnam, and a lot of so much of cinema was such a downbeat thing that the upbeat positivism of the original Star Wars film was part of the reason why it became such a hit. And then people started to realize, oh wait, the Galactic Empire is actually us. And
the Empire is us now. That's the sad part is and then
Tony Gilroy said, yeah, that's right. And he turned 2 seasons worth of a TV show into a very studied treatise on how to avoid descending into fascism. I wish the ratings were better on Andor. I think as word of mouth goes on, more people will come to it. And
I think the problem in Star Wars is, and this is something I've talked about recently a lot, and I know I've talked to you about it. Star Wars fans have become some of the more toxic fans in fandoms.
Yeah.
And
my Twitter feed is very, very, very finely curated to avoid a lot of the big toxic shitheads.
Yeah, it's just that it's one of those things where I think people will eventually see it and watch it. Enough people will recommend it to other people. And the other side of it is it's a really deep meditation on falling into fascism, what it takes to actually put your life on the line for what you believe in at a time when nobody really believes in anything right now. And so nobody likes getting called out to the carpet. So we might need a year or 2 or 3 or 4 to be exact, where we look back on Andor and go, wow, it was during that time? That was, they pretty much nailed it on the head. Also, some really great performances, and if you haven't watched the entire season, you can watch the season 1 recap and then watch the entirety of 4. It's in 4 easily digestible chunks. So it's basically what Star Wars fans were given.
Movies.
Yeah, Star Wars fans were given 4 2.5-hour movies that were fantastic. That basically they're spaced out between a year between each one. And they're stunning, and they're well done, and they're well acted, and everybody involved deserves the amount of flowers and kudos they're getting. And don't be afraid. If you're afraid of Star Wars, and I know people are, right? They're afraid of like people like me who know, who know characters and who are like, oh yeah, Bib Fortuna, and just throw it out there. Don't be afraid. It's super easy to watch. It is just well done, and stormtroopers show up on occasion, and the Emperor's mentioned, and the Death Star's mentioned, and it's on the outskirts of Star Wars proper, and it's just an incredible show. And I was thanking everybody involved, including Tony Gilroy and Kathleen Kennedy, who gets a lot of shit for nothing, who gets a lot of shit for just trying to keep franchise afloat and move it from one generation to the next. And what I would say is she deserves some flowers too. Like,
oh yeah,
just in the sense of finding filmmakers and creatives that want to make a splash in this pool is not easy. It's not.
Mm-hmm. No.
You know what I mean? So
and people will say, "Oh, I don't like prequels because you know how they have to end." And I would say that's dumb because it's not the destination, it's the journey. Which seems simple. But when you think about it, Andor is a prequel to a prequel, and it's some of the best Star Wars we've gotten in forever.
Well, and I was talking.
And I've enjoyed most of what we've had from Star Wars, in the past couple of years.
Yeah, I don't. Star Wars to me is always Star Wars. To me, a bad Star Wars movie is better than half the stuff we get.
It's like pizza. Even bad pizza is still pizza, except if you're getting it at that one place on Hollywood Boulevard I ate a couple weeks ago. That was absolute shit.
That was the one that was supposed to be New York. But yeah, I mean,
but hey,
but if you're afraid of the franchise, don't be afraid. I think that's the key for people who are fans of Andor. I think you're going to start. I got a shirt. And people will see it in a couple of weeks on the show. I think you're going to see the shirt a lot this summer. And if you see the shirt, you don't have to get scared about it. You just have to kind of ask a question. The water is great. Come on in. The Andor water is fantastic.
Yeah. In fact, if you hate the fandom around Star Wars, totally ignore it. Don't follow anybody on YouTube.
I think that Joe hates the fandom too.
People just enjoy
a well-crafted show, right?
Yeah.
And also
hang out with your friends. And if they start repeating crap that they heard from Star Wars Theory, they're not your friends.
Well, this is like the person who I'm sure I told you, but I'll tell people on the show again. Yeah. There was a story where somebody came to me and said I didn't like Alien Romulus because of all the political shit that was in it. And the response to that is, Alien's been political the entire time. Since the first movie, where these fucking poor people were made to land to answer a distress call that they were not prepared to answer, and they weren't even getting extra shares.
Because the company didn't care if they lived or died. All the company wanted was the bioweapon that they could exploit.
Yeah, so the idea...
capitalism may be a little evil.
Just maybe. But it's the same discussion with Star Wars, right? The fandom has kind of come through the other side and is not nearly as cool and righteous and welcoming as they were, from 77 to let's say 2003. Because I think 2003 is about where people started bitching about everything. So... For good reason. 2003, Clones deserves all the animus. Anyway, I hope I don't lose my thing in the Star Wars fan club.
Meanwhile, I've got my episode 3 bucket right behind me.
Yes, and I have my Vader bucket.
We should plan ahead so I can redress my set here.
We should.
I've got a little BB-8
we'll talk.
This is like my favorite popcorn bucket, I think, of all time. Just because, well.
You can't open it, but it's great.
Yeah, BB-8's head opens up and you just fill it up with popcorn.
Yeah. Did I show you my Vader thing, or did I only... I didn't show
you did. Yeah, you did.
Did I? With the voice and everything? It's fantastic. Anyway, I always want to eat popcorn with somebody heavy breathing next to me. Okay, couple comments, and then we'll start tonight's show proper. Wasn't expecting that ending of Final Destination Bloodline. Shh. No spoilers. But it was a great ending. Sinners is amazing. Yes. Movie tickets are expensive. As someone who does not have cash, I'm not going to pick which movie I want to see as much as I think. I saw Thunderbolts. It's amazing. I saved my money for Fantastic Four.
That's fair.
But that is fair, but there's also, I don't know, there's a lot of movies opening in that July window. July is going to be messy. So much money is about to be had.
There are programs out there if to kind of maximize your ticket buying power. and I'm sure, if you're a movie fan, you probably looked for them already, Raven. And I understand. I've been in periods of my life where it was tough to get, the money together to go to a movie. So, that I understand, and, empathize with most emphatically. So
it's true.
I hope it reverses out for you. Soon,
yeah, I hope it's short-lived and you can go and see whatever the hell you want, kid.
And eat lots of popcorn while doing it.
And eat lots of popcorn and other things, because that's actually what keeps the theater in business. If you like this content, if you like hearing from us, please subscribe to Indie Escape YouTube network, YouTube channel. We also have a Facebook page, which is great. We also have an Instagram page where we're putting all of our new chopped up bits comments where everybody gets to go. But we are here to discuss Mission Impossible, the franchise, Mission Impossible 3. And, this movie is a change in direction. It's a change in where we're headed with the franchise. And let's go with production. And so the story goes here is that they were trying to make one in 2004, Rich, and things didn't go well in 2004. They had this director who started working on it in 2002 for 2004, and his name was David Fincher. So we almost got a David Fincher goddamn Mission Impossible movie, but the
that
interesting
sounds
thing,
frightening on a certain level.
Oh my God, it would be amazing. But what I would say is David Fincher eventually drops out. He makes this little movie called Zodiac, which is great. So we're fine. But he had creative differences over the direction of the series. They then brought in this little director named Joe Carnahan. He was chosen to replace Fincher. And he even had a cast and worked on the movie for 15 months, Rich. Under his involvement, he had spectacular actors set up. Kenneth Branagh, who may or may not have been like a domestic U.S. terrorist. You also had Carrie-Anne Moss from the Matrix, and he had Scarlett Johansson. So that now Carnahan had worked on Narc, which is a great movie, and he has made some really great gritty action movies. I don't know that he fits into this box, but if you're telling me he would have had Cruise and Johansson and Moss.
Remember, at this point, we're still
Branagh.
kind of in the director's showcase era of Mission Impossible, though.
Yes, and we haven't gone over $1 yet. That was a bad joke. That was a bad because you said showcase. Anyway,
Heyo.
But so again, he ends up fighting with producers, and he quits in July 2004. Now, this movie gets made in 2006, so that should give you an idea of how long a process it is. Mission Impossible 2 had come out in 1999 or 2000. It came out, so 6 years between films. First movie debuted in 96. Second movie debuted in 2000. 6 years is a long time. But like I had said earlier, Tom Cruise apparently liked Alias. And so he had, in his free time and while they were working on this movie, the rumors are he binge watched Alias, loved Alias, and contacted a young whippersnapper who was working in television, who had never made a movie before, Rich, named J.J. Abrams. And so
Doesn't ring a bell.
Yeah, it doesn't. Well, it hasn't done anything recently. Hasn't been signed to Star Trek and Star Wars, and made Super 8 and a bunch of movies since then. But what I would say is
didn't have a first look deal with Warner Brothers for I don't know how many millions and how many years.
Didn't make a thing. Nothing. Zero. Because Warner Brothers sucks, Rich. Anyway, Warner Brothers having a great year. I can't fault.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about Warner Brothers is they normally suck, but they've had so much luck this year.
Mm-hmm.
So much luck this year.
I don't know if you've seen it. On the Filmbuff Facebook page, we have little history on this date and history posts. And just this past week was the anniversary of a Warner Brothers fire in the 1950s on the set. And, in the write-up, it's, they suspected it might have been arson. And then underneath, somebody asked, hey, did they ever catch the guy? And I said, no, but my suspicion is it was a young David Zaslav, and he's just back here now finishing the job of destroying the entire studio.
Oh, our hatred for Zaslav knows no bounds. But again, he's had a lucky year, although it's not him. It's just the creatives he happened to.
Pam Abdi and the other guy who are in charge of the film
they've gotten lucky. But Abrams signs on, and it makes it, it was basically delayed a year. There was a Magnum PI kind of thing going on here, where Abrams had to finish Alias and all of his contractual obligations to Lost. At the time, he was producing Lost as well. He loses Branagh, Moss, Johansson, and the script that they were part of. He also apparently loses Ricky Gervais, who was supposedly cast as Benji Dunn. It would have been bad.
I'm not a Ricky Gervais fan, to be honest. There's a aura of smugness about him that kind of makes him have a punchable face.
Yeah, definitely. But the idea that he dropped out as well because of the production delays from the Alias Lost contracts. And so we end up with Simon Pegg. And basically Pegg had auditioned for Carnahan. And, there's always rumors that Gervais was supposed to be Benji, but Pegg has always stated it was always my character. And that Gervais was going to play a different character in the movie. And I was thinking, what, like the evil secret agent? The evil, like one of the evil people? Or maybe the Phillip Seymour Hoffman? I could easily see him as the Phillip Seymour Hoffman role, although incredibly not as good. Then it's rumored that Billy Bob Thornton was offered the role of Owen Davian. But he didn't want to be a villain anymore. Which is
too bad. I think he would have been very good at it.
He would have been an interesting, it's right around Sling Blade, right? So it would have been interesting. So then basically they gave the film a green light. All the actors were cast, budget was developed, and then Cruise took a pay cut to make this movie. Because even though Mission Impossible 2 made a ton of scratch, Mission Impossible, they weren't sold that it was a franchise. So budget ends up being 150 to 186 million, depending on what Paramount bean counters you believe. But Cruise takes a pay cut and takes profit points, which will become down the line for Tom Cruise just genius, Jack Nicholson Joker-esque level smarts. Then one thing that Abrams and Cruise decided on, they offered Martin Landau a role to be Roland Hand in a small cameo. But the rumors go, and the story goes, is that he hated the first two movies so much that he just said he asked for an exorbitant amount of money to grace the franchise with his presence. And this was, of course, around the time when he was making a bunch of movies and doing great performances. I think it's kind of funny. He asked for a bunch of money, and they were like, no, we can't give you that much. And he's like, I'm good. I don't like the franchise anyway.
It's no surprise. When they were going through a couple different directors before they landed on John Woo for the second part, one of the screenplays had, some of the original series characters returning, and they had reached out to, Landau.
They were off-put. I'm not going to lie, the original actors
they were insulted by, I think, and I don't blame them, honestly. I think they were kind of insulted by what they did to the Mr. Phelps character in the first one.
And nobody wants that.
It's an interesting start point, And if you were just a regular Mission Impossible fan, you know, back when that first film came out, that was a hell of a twist. I get why fans are pissed off about that still. I mean, because I'm a Green Hornet fan, and I hate in the Green Hornet movie with Seth Rogen that Inspector Scanlon, who is like the Commissioner Gordon to the Green Hornet's Batman, is made the villain. Sorry, spoilers for a crappy movie from like 10 years ago.
You have no control, Rich. You have no control. No control about these spoilers, Rich. You're just throwing them out there willy-nilly. 13 years after the facts.
In Citizen Kane,
there were mirrors. There's a mirror
like
shot.
I said at the time, if you made a Batman movie where Commissioner Gordon turns out to be the Joker because you thought, hey, no one cares about Commissioner Gordon character, or you know, whatever, you would be pissed. And that's the same reason
that really kind of ruins the Killing Joke.
And that's the way.
Yeah. Anyway,
and that's also how Mission Impossible fans felt.
But I like the idea that I like the idea that Cruise and Abrams had the same thought we're going to offer. They do principal photography in Rome, Italy, starting July 12th, 2005. They end that filming in October. They also film in China, Shanghai, and Zhejiang, Germany and Berlin, Italy, Rome and Casatera, United States, California, Virginia, and Maryland, and Vatican City. The night scenes were involving a skyscraper filmed in Shanghai, while some of the Shanghai filming was done in LA. So now, this is also the first time, because Abrams kind of drags people along with him, right? He's one of those people. He brings a young guy named Michael Giacchino in to do the music composing on the film. So he is the third major composer to take a crack at it, behind Hans Zimmer and Danny Elfman. And
I love Giacchino's work most of the time.
It's non-existent here.
His score for The Incredibles is, well, incredible.
Fantastic.
Here, it's a little too militaristic, I think, for a spy movie. It feels like a war movie.
Well, his movies are always...
The stairs right at the beginning of the theme and everything. I mean, mostly it does work, but I will say,
his movies are always, his scores are always very, very bombastic. He's now branched out into directing as well. He directed The Incredible Werewolf at Night, a short that was on Disney a couple years ago. Also, I do need to point out, if you really want to get a great Michael Giacchino score that is not in the movie at all, not in the movie it's in, there is a score at the end of Cloverfield that is a fantastic monster movie score that only plays during the credits. It is a secret that only if you stay through credits do you get this wonderful, amazing, scary movie score. And I can't recommend it enough if you've never seen it, if you're a fan of the Cloverfield franchise. It's stay through the credits. You get a cutscene at the end anyway, but you get the great score, and it's a really rich, intrinsically Godzilla score. You know what I mean? It's great.
Oh yeah.
Also, we need to point out that this movie has a Kanye West song titled "Impossible" that features on the soundtrack, which I immediately fast forwarded through. I feel bad for Twista, Keshia Cole, and BJ that they now have to be associated with him. And he can, no uncertain terms, fuck right off. Anyway,
you're not incorrect.
I'm not incorrect there. Now, the other thing that has to be talked about during production is that there was... we're going to talk about the controversy a little bit, and it involves Kanye, and it involves Tom Cruise, and it involves South Park. So... when this movie came out, there was an episode of South Park titled Trapped in the Closet, Parts 1 and Part 2. And basically, there was a controversy probably started by Fox News, but probably has a foot in reality, but also probably has a foot in non-reality. But basically, the story goes... that Viacom canceled the rebroadcast of Trapped in the Closet Part 1 and 2 under threats from Tom Cruise to participate in the Mission Impossible 3 publicity tour. They were reported by E! News, American Morning, Fox News, several Washington Post, and it caused a mini swirling controversy a little bit about the movie that caused even a backlash, caused a boycott. The idea that Tom Cruise was using his clout with Paramount, which, by the way, just so we're clear, lots of Hollywood stars do. If you want to, if you want to call Cruise out for using clout to bury something that they don't like, when they are, in fact, one of the studio's greatest single box office performers in his history. I don't like censorship, but it has happened. And it's not that it's, whether or not it's true or not, it's bad, but it's also, I can understand why Paramount and Viacom at the time blinked, right? And then, so there was a boycott. There was a whole thing with that got into religion and got into the Scientology aspects of things. And then, Tom Cruise got asked on an episode of ABC's Primetime. First of all, could you ever imagine sitting down with anyone? I would never sit down with somebody and question them on their beliefs. Here's the thing. I'm really not going to dignify this. And I honestly didn't really know about it. I'm working, making my movie. I've got my family. I'm busy. I don't spend days going, gosh, what are people saying about me? Which immediately sounds guilty. So
yeah, that
immediately
sounds like 100% bullshit.
100% bullshit. But the controversy is there, and if you dig deep into it, it was a good solid 2-3 weeks of entertainment news, like the Trapped in the Closet controversy. Back when we had stupid news that lasted for 3 weeks and it wasn't the end of the world. Not like our 24-hour news cycle where you can't imagine what's going to happen from one day to the next. And so, yeah.
And part 2 of Trapped in the Closet was all about Tom Cruise and making fun of Scientology, and this is what Scientologists actually believe.
Oh boy. And
so I think Tom Cruise may have, if he indeed leveraged some of his star power at Paramount, which also owns Comedy Central, to say, I don't want it. I would prefer this not be rerun, or else I might not do some promotion for this movie. If that's the case, I dare say, knowing Matt and Trey and how they react,
that's why we got the sequel. Yeah,
that's why we got a Tony Award-winning Broadway musical called The Book of Mormon. Because, it was just, I think, kind of them just reacting to all sorts of...
It's an interesting controversy. It's like...
ridiculous, what they felt were ridiculous religious beliefs.
Right, and this is quaint.
Subscribe to that. Yes.
Rich, this is quaint controversy. This is quaint that a star used his power to silence somebody. It's quaint now. Everything's quaint. So the movie, we get to the point where the movie finally opens, and we get box office, and it opens. Let's see, where are my numbers? It opens on 4,054 screens. It eventually gets up to 4,059. It only averages about 5.5 weeks in theaters, which is low for this franchise.
Yeah,
really low. Even low for the time. It grosses $47 million in its opening weekend. It then, it's the 4th ever largest opening to that point, the most theaters. It made, 16.6 opening day, 47.7 opening weekend, almost 10 million lower than the franchise's previous films, though. It remained at number 1 with 25 million during its second weekend, beating out Poseidon's gross of 22 million. Remember, we had a Poseidon remake in 2006. Bad idea. Just release the original.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, what a bummer. The film remained in the top 10 of the box office for the remainder of its first 6 weeks. It ended its domestic run on July 20th, so not a lot of time, right? Taking in 134 million. It grosses, let's see, grosses 265 million, almost double, exactly double internationally. So this becomes a franchise that we can export because it's filmed all over the world and people like Tom Cruise. It ends up with a worldwide box office growth of 399 million. The adjusted domestic box office adjusted for inflation would be 230, which is right around where Sinners is creeping now. And so it's, you know, it grossed $70 million outside the U.S. the first 5 days of release. It opened early in Asian countries before it opened in America. And it was easily, for the year, the box office champ in many of those countries, especially with that huge gross of 265, right? It is, however, the lowest gross of the series until 2024. 2024. And so it's really a weird kind of little whatever. It was the second movie in 2006 to also pass the $100 million mark, following Ice Age: The Meltdown. But it was so much lower than Mission Impossible 2, and has remained the lowest of the franchise, even though, as we had talked about earlier, it's the turning point of the franchise. It's the director's showcase turning point of the franchise. And it's a real interesting kind of like, it did great, but it didn't do Mission Impossible great, which is, you know, it was out of theater. It opened in May. It was out by July. You know what I mean? Like less than 2 months. It did do well. It grossed another $50 million on DVD and Blu-ray, though. So there is a, you know, this is in 2006 when we're still talking about theatrical frames. This movie did $50 million on Blu-ray and DVD sales. So, you know what I mean? Like, all you have to do is wait 6 months. Everything will be fine. And so that's where we take it. We go in a critical response then and now, right? So on Rotten Tomatoes, we use it as an aggregate. It's not meant to give you anything except some cool numbers we can play around with. It is at a whopping 71%, which is still higher than most of the other Mission Impossibles. Popcorn meters at 69%. So it's a little bit low for the franchise because I think, and this is where you and I can get into it, there is a distinct change from the first movie and the Woo movie to this movie. Woo is kind of mindless and you know, slow motion and pigeons. And then this is
stylish.
It's stylish. It's got ALIAS DNA all over it. It's like, you know, and I think maybe the reason people don't like it quite as much is because it is a little toned down, right? It is like, we don't know what the rabbit's foot is. The name of the episode today is the Rabbit's Foot episode. And no, we don't know what the rabbit's foot is yet. It's a MacGuffin. It's a MacGuffin we haven't even discussed.
And I feel as a MacGuffin, it's kind of weak. Honestly,
it's not like the dangerous MacGuffins we've seen already in the franchise, which is a knock list and fucking, you know, a knock list and fucking Chimera, right? With fucking Bellerophone, like, injections, and it's not nearly as scary as any of that because we never.
Well, it's obviously it's a biological weapon again, and we just had that in 2, and I think at least 2 was kind of interesting about it.
Well, because we saw what the biological weapon did. This one,
all we know this is a red tube of goo.
It's a red tube of goo that we have no idea, and you know, whatever. Now the interesting thing here is, you know, the stand apart parts of this, right? I mean, Phillip Seymour Hoffman is great. Like, he's so good. And there's the sequence that I think everybody should talk about. So a moment where Tom Cruise is not beating the shit out of him, but just trying to scare him. and he's hanging him off a plane, out of a plane door, and all kinds of shit. And the way the sequence ends is Cruise flips him back into the plane. He lands with a thud, and then he delivers the most bone-chilling dialogue where you love somebody, I'm going to find whoever you love, and I'm going to kill her in front of you. Like, and Tom Cruise, like, there's a look on his face like, what the fuck have I done? And it's the first time the Ethan Hunt character has been, like, the idea that... What was that?
I was gonna say that's a bold supposition, thinking that Ethan is straight.
Oh, let's not get into the trap in the closet thing. Anyway, what I would say, you know, so that character is fantastic. He's better than any of the other villains we've had. He's better than Voight. He's better than Doug Ray Scott. So right off the bat, the movie's already above. Then they also add Michelle Monaghan, right? And she plays this character named Julia. At the beginning of the movie, Ethan's training agents. He's not going out in the field anymore. He's settling down. He finds this nice nurse that he really likes, and they have an engagement party, and it's beautiful and it's sweet. And and Ethan's like, it's the first time he's smitten in the franchise where he's, where it's not gameplay with the other characters. And Michelle Monaghan is really good. She's solid. She is somebody that you root for, that you like. And when she gets kidnapped midway through as the plot point, you're like, this could go horribly wrong, but it is a Mission Impossible movie, so theoretically it shouldn't. And then it becomes this, good. She has good chemistry with Cruise. They work out well. They also do a really good job with the background IMF agents, right? Ving Rhames is back as Luther Stickle. He'll be back a lot more. But they add some really interesting. They add Jonathan Rhys Meyers, and they add Maggie Q. And they're Rich. I don't know how they didn't get another crack
shot at this. Yeah, no.
Yeah, they're really fun.
There's a scene where they're in the van and they're talking, like as they're waiting for something to happen. It was just like maybe 30 seconds. And I was like, oh, we really don't get this too often in these movies where these characters actually get to have like a little bit of a discussion and they're kind of revealing a little bit about themselves. I like this. Oh, we're never going to see them again.
Well, and that's the interesting thing there is like, so Maggie Q is great. She plays like she assists Ethan at the Vatican and Shanghai, and she's really great. Jonathan Rhys Meyers, this is before he hits it big. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know why they don't get asked back. I don't know why we don't see them later in the franchise. We also get stellar performances from Kerry Russell as an IMF agent that's held captive and that Ethan is trained. She's really good. She's not out of place. We get Billy Crudup as an IMF leader that, appears duplicitous from the get-go because, like, one of the major stars that's pitted against or near Ethan has got to be the bad guy. And we get Lawrence Fishburne, right? And then also in a small little cameo, we get this amazing British actor named Simon Pegg, who plays Benjamin Benji Dunn, who is a guy that helps Ethan at the IMF place. And again, it's this, he sticks out. And when he sticks out, it becomes like, I want to see him again. Now, I want to see all of them again. Like, I think the sadness for me is that in rewatching this, and I haven't rewatched it in a long time, is that I really like the camaraderie that Rhys Meyers has with Maggie Q and that Maggie Q has with Tom Cruise, and they're all really good together. And you just wonder what happened. How did they not get asked back? Or are we going to be seeing them on Thursday night?
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm looking forward to actually researching for the next episode, the next film that we do. Simply because I'm wondering if we're going to find out that they were lowballed on an offer and they said, you know what? No, I deserve more. and that's why they didn't.
But the interesting thing there is, like, what this also turns into is young up and comers that get roles in a Mission Impossible movie. Because the next movie, when we get to Ghost Protocol, which is clearly coming next week on the Indie Escape Network, it's clearly coming next week. We get young actor, we get a Jeremy Renner, and we get, like it's out of nowhere, right? And so it becomes the idea that we can put all these different people in. But like, look at Kara Russell and Cruise back to back. That sequence is fantastic when he's breaking her out. They go back to back as they're killing people throughout a warehouse type place. It's really well shot. It's really well done. It does have an Alias vibe to it, which is fine. But we got Benji Dunn, a young Simon Pegg, who doesn't look a day over whatever, and we get a great chemistry between. Still doesn't, and we get great chemistry with Cruise and Michelle Monaghan, and then we get the amazing Phillip Seymour Hoffman as, this bad guy who's basically he's just a scumbag. He's just a terrible person.
I know, but he's so good at it.
He's so good at it. Well, I know,
my biggest complaint actually about this movie is how Phillip Seymour Hoffman's character is dispatched. It seems like it's random. It's weak. I mean, they set it up, yes, with Ethan about to go around the corner, as he's chasing after him, and the truck goes by and he has to kind of pop back in. They said, yes, trucks go crazy, in this town. But just the fact that
they didn't have an idea. They didn't know what to do with him once. Like, he's so smarmy and so evil that, like, it's almost as if they don't want Tom Cruise to touch him. Like, if Tom Cruise,
it's not a satisfactory.
No, it's not a satisfactory dispatch
for the audience,
and it's also not complicitly satisfactorily dispatched the way the first two movies did it. You know what I mean? Like, John Voight got crushed by a fucking train and a helicopter. Doug Ray Scott got fucking stabbed in the face. Like, it doesn't really cut it. But it also, like, I always felt rewatching it that it's like they don't want little Tom to touch him because he's so evil. He might rub off on him in the wrong way. So let's just let him and his weirdness get hit by a car. Let's run with it. But it's good. It's better than 2 in every conceivable way, except the spectacle of 2. Like, and that's where you see. If we still had to judge the 3, just in a bubble by themselves, I still think the first one is the best of these 3 films. Of the 3, 3 is kind of the mutation into what the franchise becomes. But I like that original, just plain flat thriller aspect of the first one. This is starting to become a little bit more. It's edging out of the thriller into action. It is, and there's. Saying? Yeah, no, I do. Don't feel as much attention. Even though every film after this consecutively is going to have Ethan disavowed by the government. Right. I think the interesting thing is that the mutations in the series, the first 3 movies are like the 3 petri dishes in a clinical laboratory. Mm-hmm. And what happens with the franchise in Ghost Protocol 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is the 3 things that are in the 3 separate containers of Mission Impossible, Mission Impossible 2, Mission Impossible 3 all get kind of like, it's like somebody dumped the test tube and they're all jammed together. So we get the spectacle that we get into. We get the really intricate plot with, with the MacGuffin we're going after. And we get Tom Cruise doing cool things. And we get 3 action set pieces per movie, right? That we got in the original, which is Brian De Palma, channeling his inner Howard Hawks. And that becomes like, it's like they took the 3 movies and they put them in a petri dish. And then it's like that petri dish in Alien Romulus. The end when the black goop and they're doing like all the stuff. And then all of a sudden you look at the black the black goop, and it's in that one room, in the run test tube, and there's like a rat that like plays with it for a second, and then the next thing you see is the rat in the cage, and it's like it's busting out of the cage, and it's like dead. That's what I think happened here. It's like what worked in the first 3 movies, and we're going to take pieces from all of them. And Macquarie understands.
It's funny that it took to 3 to have a really pointless MacGuffin that kind of propels the entire plot.
It is pointless. It is the most pointless.
It felt very much like a Hitchcock MacGuffin in that it's really inconsequential. Where you would have thought the Hitchcock MacGuffin would have been done by De Palma in the first one. But no, his film is actually pretty solid.
Yeah, this one is more Hitchcockian, but also because it's like when he says the rabbit's foot to him, he says it to him like 3 or 4 times in the movie. And every time he says it, like Tom Cruise looks at him like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, I don't know what that is. Mm-hmm. You need to get it and bring it back. I can't get it if I don't know what it is. Right? And it happens like 3 times in the movie. You're going to get me the rabbit's foot and bring it back. Great. I don't know what the rabbit's foot is. And it just happens 3 or 4 times. And every time it happens, Phillip Seymour Hoffman's inner rage gets channeled. And he just he hits somebody or he shoots somebody in the thigh or he does something horrible to somebody. It's great. It's like the performance he gives is fantastic. May he rest in peace. And we're sorry we lost you so early. In all honesty.
Every Phillip Seymour Hoffman performance, I think, carries the slight tinge of what we've lost.
Yes.
These past years.
Absolutely.
And it just kind of hammers it home again. Watching, what an incredible craftsman-driven performance this is. Yet there are times when he has like a little bit of a worried look on his face, like on the bridge rescue. He's like, "Oh shit, what's going on?" I gotta get out of here.
Well, every once in a while you notice it in other people that are in the franchise that are not Tom Cruise. I noticed that I've been rewatching all of them because I'm trying to get ready for Thursday, and I was watching one. And I think in Rogue Nation, there's a moment where Ving Rhames gets out of a helicopter, and he looks just about as awkward as anybody getting out of a helicopter could look. and the camera cuts away, and it cuts back, and he's like catching himself. So it's everybody. Reviews.
Although I would say, doesn't Ving Rhames have a bit of a he's a bit of like a I don't want to say a health problem, but like. He's getting a little slower. He's got a little bit of arthritis or something as an actor.
Oh no! I'm just telling you. I noticed it because it's the same. It's the same look that every actor has that isn't Tom Cruise in a Mission Impossible movie. Every actor has it. Jeremy Renner has it. Every actor has it that isn't Tom Cruise in these movies. Rich, it's something I noticed. I'm 5 in, so I have 2 left before Thursday. And so let's talk about some of the reviews from the good critics and the bad. David Anson, this snappy installment is a marked improvement over John Woo's surprisingly dull sequel, though the set pieces lack the elegance and visual coherence of the Brian De Palma original. That's about right?
I can't argue with that, really.
Right. But the interesting thing is, it's because Abrams is used to television sets at this point. He hasn't made a big budget movie. So he gets in and there isn't even a visual flair in this movie, Rich. I was shocked. So anyway, but like other people, other major critics, most people liked it. The negative reviews, are funny. Somebody wrote, "The machines have won. The audience is hoping for sanity or logic have lost." Which is great.
Can't argue with that, really.
Either. No, I can't. Had a pop artist handled this franchise could have had its On Her Majesty's Secret Service with machines directing machines. However, it's closer to Live and Let Die. Now, the interesting thing there is, I think this is borderline close to On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which we have done during our Bondathon. There is On Her Majesty's Secret Service vibes in this one, right? Because the wife is in danger. It's not like it's not as brutal as On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is his Bond got married, his wife is dead. It's not that level, right? Spoiler alert, by the way, for On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Spoiler alert for a 50-year-old movie.
Yeah, but we get yelled at all the time. But like I said, I think the interesting thing here is the first 3 movies put in a petri dish become the mutated franchise that we get going forward, right? And that takes us to the amazing legacy and franchise viability. First off, we've already talked about it. One of the more easily biggest franchises in the history of Hollywood, right? It's we're about to be 8 films in, and to be honest, if it didn't end, people would be shocked but not surprised because they're still making good movies, right? So it's not like we're in a Friday the 13th situation where, Ethan Hunt's going to Manhattan. It's not like that at all.
Ethan takes Manhattan.
Ethan takes Manhattan. But like the interesting thing is the viability of the franchise. It was in a weird place after this one, right? Because this one gets made in 2006, and the next one, Ghost Protocol, doesn't get made for another. Hold on.
5?
No, it's more than 5. Is it 5? I don't know. Hold on. I'm looking. Give me a second. I should have it up. I don't. Hold on. But like I said, like the interesting thing is it was on life support, and this one didn't do great. 5 years, you were right. 2011 is when Ghost Protocol comes out. So that's another 5-year span. So 6. It goes 4, 5, 6 for the sequels. 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, right? But the legacy of this one is, I think it's, the other legacy has to be talked about is that, Tom Cruise gave J.J. Abrams a nice car to start his career with, right? A viable franchise that put him in charge of a huge budget that he pulled off with one of the biggest stars in the world. It makes those discussions that I'm sure Abrams had with ABC about Lost and Alias. I don't need to go back there. I have a big budget. I just made a movie with Tom Cruise, and that's another thing that happens out of this movie is the rest of the movies are bad robot productions, right? The rest of the movies are J.J. Abrams has his hands on or around them, and he populates the film, with, the next movie, for example, in Ghost Protocol, Josh Holloway from Lost is an IMF agent.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, well that's. So it's a big franchise move, right? And it goes away from being, although we still get a batch of directors until we get somebody that wholeheartedly takes charge of the franchise. Hey, Sean Smithson. Hey, brothers. Thank you for joining us, Sean. We always appreciate you. And congrats on the quitting smoking. I know you're working on it.
Oh,
that's a big deal. And I'm happy for you, and I hope it continues. And a lot of people have struggled, and we're with you, man.
I will
all the way.
Always offer my support and encouragement to people who want to stop smoking. Even though I do have friends who smoke cigars, I lost my grandfather because he smoked a good chunk of his life, and if he had had a few more years, I would have gotten to know him more as a person, and would have been able to hear some of his stories from World War II the way my older brothers got to. And I do feel I missed out on that. And don't leave family and friends with regrets. Sorry, this got morbid. Anyway.
But Sean says thank you. 46 days now, cold turkey too. Awesome. Great job, buddy. We appreciate you.
Do the Kojak method and just, have a lollipop.
Have a lollipop. My dad, I used to have, when my dad was quitting during the Great American Smokeout, remember when we had those? When my dad was quitting, I would bring him grapes from the store. So he could pop grapes while I was watching movies and stuff. Anyway, something to think about. Just a little, we all have oral fixation, sort of. But like I said, this is an interesting jumping off point for the franchise, right? The idea that it's morphing into something different. It's still going to be a Tom Cruise vehicle, but the stories we're going to tell, the things we're going to do, we're going to make our own way, our own path. It goes away from being the Mission Impossible. It's kind of, just the music at some point for the franchise, right? And that is a fantastic place to start, a place to end. We do have a couple things coming up. Let's talk about this week at the box office. So Final Destination did $51 million. Thunderbolts and Sinners are still doing well. Also, Minecraft is still doing well. Minecraft was in 4th place.
That's
in the
pretty
biggest
good for...
It's almost a $950 million movie, Rich. It's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But the kids love it. We just bought it. Anyway, we got this coming up on Friday. I know we're behind, but this guy is coming up on Friday. I'm going to try to see it as soon as I can. Family things may get in the way of this particular weekend for me. But look at the cool posters this movie has. Hanging on Planes. And then also this guy's coming to the box office this week. And I got to tell you, I think it has a shot to do really well. Because I think
you're right. I have absolutely no interest in it, but yeah.
He's one of the more popular characters down here in Florida. You can't go 5 feet without seeing a goddamn Stitch thing on a car. So, but also I think this is going to tie into the live action movies, right? Like something to pay attention to. Yeah, Snow White didn't do well. Snow White is going to do great when it gets to Disney Plus. It is. I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to do great because it's not a bad movie, but it's just not. There's no connection. This is a live action.
You're going to find it and just rewatch it over and over and over and over.
Yeah, and this movie has connection. We have kids that grew up on Lilo and Stitch, the animated movie, who are going to take their kids or take their nephews or take it's. This is a cross-generational chance for this movie to really knock it out of the park. And this box office weekend could be spectacular because we could have 4 or 5 or 6 movies over $10 million. And all those raise the tide. This will be a great way to kick off the Memorial Day weekend summer box office. And it could not come at a better time. And I'm super excited. Okay, Rich, where can people find your writing? I know you just finished up some 50th SNL stuff this week. That was fantastic.
We're still going strong because we actually missed a couple of weeks due to crunches of other obligations. So Bill and I actually have about 3 or 4 more to do that we're going to be still rolling out over the next couple of weeks. But all of that can be found along with my reviews and all sorts of other news and feature writing at filmbuffonline.com. We also have a Facebook page and a Twitter account that you can follow us. If you follow on the Facebook page, you get extra bonus material like on this date in history posts, things like born on this date, passed away on this date, some late breaking news. We'll throw up posts when somebody in the entertainment community unfortunately has to leave the planet. And then, so you can find all of that there. I do 2 other podcasts. One is called The Big Picture Podcast. I do that with my very best friend and co-host, Natasha Bogutsky. You can find a link there.
And good friend of the show. She's a good friend of our show, too.
Good friend of the show. You can find a link on Filmbuff Online, or you can just go directly to bigpicturepod.com. The other podcast I do is Film Scribes, which is the official podcast of the Philadelphia Film Critics Circle, which I am a member of, and I also produce the podcast. So we just dropped our most recent episode last week where we talked about Sinners, Thunderbolts, Turner Classic Movie Film Festival and the recently held Philadelphia Springfest Film Festival. And you can find me shooting off my mouth about politics and movies and entertainment on the socials at Filmbuff Rich on Twitter and Blue Sky.
So JW the Movie Guy on Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, all those places. We have IMDb pages as well if you want to check us out. But you can also find me on Tuesday nights with my good friends Kyle and Jerry as we go in the entire week in pop culture on Loud and Nerdy. And then next week, my good friend Rich, who's here, we're here every week, we continue our deep dive into the Mission Impossible franchise when we will go into Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol. Christopher McQuarrie joins the franchise. Brad Bird of The Incredibles directs. And I just did a rewatch of this yesterday, and then I did 5 today. I did Rogue Nation today.
Oof.
So I got 2 left before we get to the big event this Thursday.
I just finally got my 4K of Dead Reckoning from Amazon yesterday. So
yeah,
I'm
not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. Ghost Protocol is great, and then Rogue Nation is really good. And I have Fallout, and I have Dead Reckoning Part 1 left. And they're all like. It's like the other interesting thing that happens franchise-wise is that there's a continuity after 4, right? 4 begins like a giant No Time to Die Bond character arc that lasts for 4 movies in a row. Anyway, thanks for joining us tonight. Everybody have a great week. Good luck, whatever you're going to see this weekend, or if you're going to see both. Have fun at the movies, and thanks for joining us tonight. Last 2 comments. I hope Mission Impossible is absolutely amazing. Needs an amazing ending. No reboots or spin-off movies. Again, though, why shouldn't somebody else get a shot? If Cruise wants to produce,
yeah,
I have no problem with
Cruise wants to produce, let the continuity continue. Bring Jeremy Renner back as the new head.
Sean doesn't like it. Sean does not like younger cast getting chances. I don't know. I'm a big fan of Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Have Jeremy Renner return. Have Suzy Q return. And they team up with Benji and Luther.
Yeah, you keep somebody.
Yeah.
But
that was the whole premise of the original series.
Was that the IMF was moving. It was always a moving pieces.
Yeah, you always had a bunch of different ones that would come in and out, but then they kind of abandoned that idea fairly quickly. Also,
the idea that we lose Kerry Russell in this one, she would have been a perfect person after her recent work on The Americans and The Diplomat. She would have been perfect to take over the franchise. But thanks for joining us tonight. Spoiler on that. Sorry if you didn't know.